I think generally viewer count is bad because it creates a toxic mindset, and also it's better to just focus on like your chat as they are and welcome people in as they join. I think for me it's helped me a lot because I just say hi to people as they join, and I just, you know, speak to people as they come in. I don't really focus on a number because I think that's very unhealthy. A lot of people do that on social media, and I get it, right? You know, it's very easy to get consumed by that kind of thing, and I do not, you know, I am also guilty of that, right? I feel like every content creator has had that phase where they've been overly anxious about numbers and shit. You know, it's natural, and there's no shame in that, especially if content creation is your job. I think that's totally valid. You know, for being stressed about it and, you know, having thoughts like, am I good enough, like yada yada yada. But generally I find it best to just not look at it, because if I don't, ignorance is bliss, okay? Ignorance is bliss. If I don't know, then if I don't know, then I can't worry. You see what I mean? If I don't know the viewer count, I can't stress about it. It's a win-win. And so for me, I just don't look. I don't look because it just makes me anxious, you know? It's easy to fall into that negative way of thinking, because I've been there. Every content creator, you know, has experienced that. It's a very valid feeling, and I don't think there's any shame in that. A lot of people shame people for feeling stressed about like numbers and shit, when it's like, you know, especially if this is your job, right? And your paycheck is kind of reliant on like how many people watch a video, how many people do this. It's completely valid, right? For being stressed about it. It's completely valid. You know, I don't think there's any shame in it. I don't think there's any reason to shame people for being stressed about that. A lot of people look down on people who are like, oh, you're stressed about numbers? Well, you're a clout chaser. You're like, dude, the grind is hard. It is exhausting, mentally taxing, right? It's fucking difficult. I don't think it's worth shaming people for just, you know, being stressed about it, especially if they're like anxious or, you know, like, I think that's totally valid if you get like that, because for me, I've found healthy coping mechanisms, right? For me, I never check my viewer count on Twitch, and for Twitter, I stopped taking it as seriously as I used to, and that really helped. You know, I found coping mechanisms for like every social media app I use that has really helped. What I did to get out of that toxic mindset, because I barely tweet now. I only really tweet when it's on my main account, when it's, you know, something important, I feel like, or, you know, I barely tweet. And that has helped me. Reducing my time on that app, because that app is a fucking hellhole, has helped. Like, it used to be really unhealthy to the point where I would set, like, limits. I used to get really stressed about it, so you know what I did? I would have an alarm on my phone, and when that alarm went off, I would not allow myself to, like, use social media. I would be like, okay, that's it. Because 90% of content creators are chronically online, right? You kind of have to be if you do content creation, because it's part of your job, right? Like, you're making content online. It's part of your job to be online. So you're kind of going to be chronically online, right? It kind of goes hand in hand. But it definitely isn't healthy to be chronically online. You kind of have to find a good balance, I think. Or if you're someone who is quite mentally strong, then, you know, power to you. I think if you're quite a mentally fragile person, and I will fully admit I am, right? So I have to know my limits, and I have to, you know, take caution, right? Yeah. Like, the only thing that really stresses me out now, I would say, is my YouTube, uploading videos onto YouTube. That's why I get really excited when a video does well, in my eyes, right? Because for me, I don't get as stressed about all the other things. Like TikTok, don't really care. Instagram, it's kind of more personal if anything. Twitter, I stopped taking it seriously. And Twitch, I never look at viewer account. YouTube is the one thing that does stress me out though. I think I have gotten a lot better. It's just about having healthy coping mechanisms, I think. Everyone copes differently, so whatever works for you, works for you. This is just what works for me when it comes to content creation. Everyone has their own way of dealing with things. And again, if you're like a very mentally strong person and you know, you can kind of deal with being online a lot, then, you know, power to you, bro. You won. But yeah, no, I don't recommend being online much. I feel like most people, it would, because, you know, we as humans can only deal with a certain amount of negativity to the point where it starts to affect us. And back in the day, we didn't have social media, right? We had, the way that news would spread around back in the day was fucking like the pigeon carriers, you know? They would attach a note to the birds. And that's how nowadays news spreads around so fast, right? Because of the internet. And you can log on to Twitter and be hit and see the most horrific thing, right? And that's like one negative thing. And then it kind of piles up, you know? And all that negativity, even if you're like, oh, I don't really care, it doesn't bother me. I think subconsciously after a point, you see so much negativity that you start like, it starts affecting you, right? Even if you cope and you're like, oh no, it doesn't. And it definitely does. Because we can only deal with so much, right? And back in the day, they didn't really have this to worry about because, again, the way that they would communicate is by fucking pigeon, like bird. News would spread around a lot more slowly and you'd be less likely to hear about like horrific things happening throughout the world, right? But nowadays, you hear about it all the time. And it's not healthy to constantly consume all that negativity, I think. I think it's very unhealthy. So that's why I think breaks are important from social media. Because otherwise, it will start to stress you out. Like, when I see the internet, this year has been a crazy year. There's been so much shit happening online. And when I see, like, so much negative shit, like, for me, stress flares up my chronic pain. So I that's why I limit my time. Because I'm like, if I don't, then all this, like, I think that's one of my flaws. I take on other people's feelings a lot. So if I see something really upsetting or something that like bothers me, I'm gonna be like, oh, that's fucking shitty, you know, and it will affect me, and that's not good. I think it's good to stay informed, right? It's good to know about like events happening in the world. It's good to be informed. But at the same time, we're just people, right? We're just human beings, and we gotta take care of ourselves as well, you know? You can only take so much negativity to the point where you're like, oh, that's really shitty. You know? Yeah. That's what I think, at least. That's my take on that.